I've been making content on YouTube and in my day job professionally for years. So here's my best tips that you absolutely need to hear if you want to make amazing talking head videos. While any old camera will do, even your phone, keep in mind people are used to looking at high quality video on YouTube. Shoot your video in 4K if possible, and more on why in a minute. As this is a talking head video, people are going to see more of you on screen than anything else, and they want to see you, not a big block of pixels. The gear that you have doesn't really matter, it's all about the idea. But that 20-year-old phone that you have that barely shoots photos, let alone video, yeah, that's not going to cut it. For the purpose of this video, right now I'm using the Sony ZV-1, but these tips will apply to absolutely any camera that you have, even that 20-year-old phone. Don't throw the camera on a tripod and just land it anywhere. Not gonna cut it. The shot needs to be interesting. Sure, a blank wall can look okay and it does have its place, but try and shoot into a corner where possible. When it comes to the camera position itself, have the lens directly towards your face. Most importantly, your eyes, because that's where you're going to be talking to into the actual lens itself. But keep in mind as well, the distance that the camera is from you is also going to change the framing. So the further back you go, the more of a shot you get, or the closer you go, the tighter the shot that it is. Just keep in mind, while yes, it is a talking head video, we don't just want a talking head in the video and nothing else. Lighting is hugely important. In fact, it's one of the most important things. I can't stress how important lighting is, guys. I really can't. And even if you've got an old camera or that old 20-year-old phone, then lighting can give that a huge helping hand. Rule number one, do not use the light that's on your ceiling. Please do not use it, because the light that comes out of that is all over the place. Forget about it. If it's a short video, you can use daylight, and the reason I'm saying if it's a short video, use daylight from a window, because the daylight is constantly changing, and if there's a cloud comes and the sun goes in, it's going to change the whole look of your video, and that's not good. Even a cheap light is better than all of the above. You don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. When you have a light, think about the positioning of it. The general rule of thumb is you should have a rim light, which is a light behind you, a key light, which will be kind of up at 45 degrees pointing down at you, and then you'd have a fill light, or you could use a little bounce card, which will reflect the light from one light onto the face, so it fills the other side of the face. Right now, for me, I have got one light that is lit, that is up there, that is roughly at a 45 degree angle coming down, and there's a reason why it needs to be at a 45 degree angle, because if you have it straight on, it just gives a flat look to your face. Not really good, not really interesting. But when there's an angle, there's shadows, and shadows create contrast, shadows make your face look interesting, and they're kind of complementary to the triple chins. Do you need all of those lights? Absolutely not, but start with one. Creating depth ties into the last few tips, and even making the smallest little bit of effort when it comes to depth can make a huge difference to your video. The easiest and quickest way to create depth between you and the background, and this obviously you want to pop in the image, is have a light behind you. So I've got a candle here, but I've also got a blue LED light, and that helps separate me from the background, and obviously the more distance between you and the background of the wall, the better. Before even charging a battery, write down your idea. Don't wing it. Please do not wing it. I know, we can all wing it, right? But then your video turns into a rambling mess, and it's a pain to edit, and you lose the context and what you're trying to get out. So here's the thing. If you write a few bullet points down at the very least, or a script, you can go. Yeah, you can use a teleprompter, but you don't necessarily need one. In this case, I've got my phone down here, and I'm looking at that every now and again. Stay on track, stay on target for you Star Wars fans. Start with writing down the title, write down the idea, then start kind of blocking it out like a beginning, middle, and end. Don't just stick to the first version of what you write. Don't be afraid to edit it, remove all the waffle, rearrange it. Look, nobody really cares about your day, and nobody wants to hear ages of waffle until you get to the actual point of the video, which is the value that you deliver to your audience. All that aside, the thing that's really important here, besides the value, is this has to sound like you. This has to sound like it's coming from you. A lot of things that are written down will read great and will look great on a blog, but when it comes to translating them into video, a lot of the time they just don't work that well. So that's why it's important that you rearrange, you rework, you make it sound like you. Next tip here, and this is a really important one as well, is audio. Bad audio will destroy your video. Completely destroy it. Gone. Boom. Forget about it. See, here's the thing. People see with their ears as well as their eyes. So while people will tolerate some kind of dodgy looking scratchy video, poor audio will have them instantly, or they might never back, and that's what you don't want to do. The first step to having better audio is do not use the onboard mic in the camera that you have. I know, look, sometimes it works okay, and in certain situations you might get away with it, like something like $25-30 like the Saramonic XR-XM1 can make a huge difference. If you want to take things up a level, then you can go for bigger shotgun mics or wireless lavs, which is what I'm using right now, and you can really add to your audio kit as you go on. But audio, guys, is super important. Remember this: audiences hear and see with their ears as well as their eyes. These days, autofocus on cameras is pretty good. It can be very reliable depending on the camera that you're using. Now, here's the thing: if you think that your camera isn't completely reliable for autofocus, use manual focus. Now, I get it. It's like, what? How can I manually focus myself when I need to be behind the camera to do that? So put something where you're going to be. Maybe if you've got somebody else that's living with you, stick them on the chair just while you call the focus. When it comes to other settings, sure, you can absolutely leave the camera run on auto mode and leave the camera do everything. That's probably not the best idea in the long run. Start using something like aperture priority to get you going. So an aperture of f1 point, which is this is, will give you a little bit of a blurry background, while the higher it is, it won't. Obviously, the more distance between you and the background, the more blur that you're going to get as well. So keep that in mind. ISO can be left on auto, and basically in a nutshell, ISO will make the image brighter or darker, and the brighter that the ISO is, the higher the number, the more noise and grain it can bring to the picture, which isn't really good. So try and dial the ISO in. Right now my ISO is at 320. If you've got audio levels options in your camera, make sure you turn them down if they're too red, because that's not where you want to be. If you don't have audio levels in the camera that you've got, then that's okay too. Record a test clip and just play it back. Essentially your audio wants to be hitting about -9 or thereabouts, but as soon as you see red, you're dead. Talking to camera, I know this one is a biggie, and look, it's obvious. The more you do this talking to camera, then the better that you get. Talk to the actual lens of the camera, which is what I'm doing now. Don't talk to the flippy out screen, which is what I'm looking at now, because my eyes are not really looking at you. And if you've got a monitor up top, then you don't really want to be talking to the monitor either. You want to be talking directly into the lens, because that's where the audience lives. When it comes to talking to camera as well, you need to project your voice a little bit more. So if I was talking to somebody here in the room, we'd be kind of talking like this, but shoulders up, chest out kind of thing, and I'm talking to the camera, which is a couple of feet away. Don't be afraid to use your hands either. Great communicators use their hands to tell their stories all the time, but you can kind of really overdo it. So just keep that in mind, whatever feels natural. Now, here's the biggest tip I can give you when it comes to talking to camera. And this comes from somebody who was a talk show host on commercial radio for over 11 years. Talk to your audience, not at them. I know you're like, what the hell is that? So here's the thing, and you really need to think about this. You're not in an ivory tower kind of, spitting down vitriol upon your loyal subjects. No, you're talking to somebody. So you got to talk to somebody, not at them. Once you get your head around that, it will open your mind completely to talking to camera. So talk to your audience, not at them. No matter what software that you're using, edit your videos in some way. For me, I use Adobe Premiere Pro, but this, what I'm going to say, is nothing to do with Premiere Pro. This will apply to all editing softwares out there. Dump all the ums, the ahs, and most importantly, cut out any dead air or very long pauses, unless there's a really specific reason to have a long pause in there. And even then, cut it. Again, your audience aren't invested in you as you think, so anything that signals to them the video is over or it's getting boring, they're gone. A video needs to be interesting visually as well. Ultimately, if you're on screen for 10, 15, 20 minutes and it's just you, with no cuts, no anything, it can get very boring and people will probably not make it to the end of the video. Something that can help here is using jump cuts. Now, use these sparingly, but they have to be done well enough so they're not too jarring on the audience. Think of any Hollywood movie or TV show, and the next movie or TV show that you watch, keep in mind that the scene changes roughly every 9 seconds. Now, the reason the scene changes every 9 seconds is because your brain goes to sleep. They want to keep you engaged, and that's what we want to do here with these videos, is keep the viewer engaged. So every 9 seconds or thereabouts, it needs to change. That can be a little crop in, a little zoom in, or a pullback, or anything that can refresh the viewer's brain and keep things interesting. interesting. Now, speaking of interesting, that leads me on to the next tip. And this, if you apply it, will not only help hugely with keeping your viewers in the video, but it's also going to make things super interesting. B-roll will keep things super interesting. Now, I know it might sound fancy and all of that, but essentially it's not. It's just another piece of video. So let's say you're talking about, I don't know, a candle. When you're talking about the candle, you should be showcasing the candle. It keeps the viewer's brain engaged completely, and it makes what you're talking about very easy to understand. What I do when it comes to writing a kind of a script or an outline for a video, you're going to have some idea of the B-roll that you need. But for me, I shoot more B-roll after I've edited the first cut of the video. So I go, okay, I need this, this, and this. Once the video is finished, once you've edited, watch it. Don't just upload it. Watch the video. If there's mistakes, if there's some glitch or whatever, go back, fix it. If you upload a video that's full of errors or glitches or typos or whatever, then that's on you. This isn't a live video where sometimes people expect something to go wrong. This is something that you've pained over, you've ached over, you've edited, and then you felt, oh, it's good enough, I can just leave a few mistakes in it. That's a really bad thing to do, and that's your fault, nobody else's. So if you're wondering why people are leaving, then check your videos, re-render and watch again before you upload. Now, speaking of uploading, upload in 4K. Render your videos in 4K, even if you don't shoot in 4K. And the reason why is that YouTube gives less compression and more bandwidth to a video that it sees as a 4K file. So what does that mean? The video is going to look better to your audience. The other thing here as well, speaking of the audience, if you've got a few videos under your belt, and when you do, in the audience tab in YouTube, you're going to get an idea of when your audience is active on the platform, not necessarily on your channel. So it gives you a rough idea of when you should start uploading or scheduling an upload to go live, because you weren't just going to throw the video up and upload it at random times, were you? Nah, I knew you wouldn't do that. I get it. I understand the anxiety. I understand the nerves. I understand that you're going to get idiots in the comments. Block them instantly, by the way, and you've forgotten about them 2 seconds later. Don't even engage. But I understand all the fears, and that can be absolutely crippling for anybody that wants to make content. Look, I can't make you make a talking head video. I just can't. I can't force you to make any type of video. But if this is something that you really want to do, fight hard for it and just go and do it and just hit record.